If you're considering whether you need to hire help and you can determine if you want 1099 contractors or W-2 employees and what is the difference, then you might want to watch this video and not to miss it, because this video can be so detrimental for your business's success that it can not only help you grow and reach your next level, but also save you thousands on legal costs, aggravations, and extra energy spent elsewhere. In this particular video, we're going to dive into the differences between 1099 contractor and employee and how to differentiate and how to classify them while providing maximum growth opportunity for your cleaning company and protecting you as much as we can. Stay tuned and let's start diving into it right now. So before we go deeper into it, I would like to congratulate you. If you're at a stage and you're recognizing that you need to now bring in help who can help you to grow your company, whether it's cleaning or any other company, for this particular video purposes, it quite frankly does not matter, then you are in a right place, which means your mind is thinking properly as well. Because think about it, unless you learn how to find, pre-screen, hire, and retain the right people so you can start delegating tasks to them, you can't grow. Like if we talk about cleaning company, you are a glorified business owner. You are a glorified cleaner unless you are starting to bring in other people to start doing the help for you, because your energy as a business owner should be focused on creating and working on the business, not inside of it. And delegation, which starts from hiring, retaining, protecting yourself, it starts here. And I'm extremely happy that you were able to get to this stage. Without further ado, so what are the main differences? Let's talk about it. Should, and I hope you want, and none of this is a legal advice, consult with your legal attorney. What I'm trying to do is provide the information I have gathered over years, decades of running my business and interacting and coming across to different circumstances. I'm actually trying to protect you and give you as much help as needed to make sure your business is protected. So differentiators would be, should it come to a legal argument, whether the person you hired is an employee or a 1099 contractor, the main questions that have to be answered would be, do they wear your uniform? So whenever they go and represent your cleaning company, in this case, were they wearing your uniform? Were they saying they're coming on behalf of your cleaning company or not? So if yes, as business owners, I understand we sold the job. So let's say you're eco-friendly home cleaning services, you want people to go in to your customers' houses so they are not disoriented and your customers know it's a brand recognition and etc. However, if the people that are coming in wearing your uniform, even though you give them to your subcontractors, then your chances of potential exposure go up. So that's number one, do they wear your uniform? Number two would be, do you tell them what to do and when to go and what hours to work in? So meaning, if you, for example, if you clock them in and clock them out, that means you are now taking on your shoulders employer obligations and you are overseeing their time, you're telling them where to go, what to do, and acting as a supervisor and or employer. So that's a fine line as well, which means subcontractors, you just tell them, hey, I have a job that needs to get done, but you're not clocking them in and you're not clocking them out. And then the third would be, are you giving them your tools and equipment? Are they driving your company truck? Are they using your tools? Are they using your cleaning equipment? The perception is, or common understanding is, the employer provides those things, car, vehicle, equipment, chemicals to use, uniform, etc. to the employee. So if you're trying to classify someone as a subcontractor, then the expectation, they should have it all, which means now they should have their vehicle, equipment, chemicals, and etc. And then next question would be, the subcontractors provide their own transportation, so you're not providing it for them, and which means that now they're driving their own car, paying for its own maintenance and insurance and etc. And then one more defining factor is employees versus subcontractors. Let's say you have a cleaner, you hired someone as a cleaner, and then you tell them to go there and clean this because that's their job. They can't really opt out because it's them as cleaners, right? Because you hired someone to do a cleaning and then you just route them from a project to project. But a subcontractor has an option to accept your project, negotiate it, if the terms, prices, timing, etc., and also ignore the job or decline it, which means the subcontractor have rights to say, sorry, the terms, conditions, pay, whatnot does not make sense for me, so I would like to respectfully decline this job. And those would be the main differentiators between whether you are an employee or a subcontractor, depending upon who you're hiring and how you classify. And classification is like a fine line, so those are the things you need to pay attention to. Let's start diving in more into the differences. So W-2 employees, whenever you hire them, you have more control over them and potentially more profit, but it also has additional exposure and overhead expenses. For example, payroll taxes. Now you have to be taking the payroll taxes from them, specifically Social Security and Medicare, as well as offer the benefits if you're offering as an employer to retain and attract and keep the best people for you. So benefits, certain benefits are not required, certain benefits are required based on the state you are, so check with your legal team about the requirements. So that's one. And now that you're running a payroll, in general, you might need a bookkeeper or a CPA, and you might be using a third-party payroll processing platform as well. So now you're paying the third-party payroll processing. Now you're paying a bookkeeper or CPA to do that. So all that cost adds up as an overhead expense. And this is, if you haven't watched the video where I talk about one mistake that kills cleaning companies, you might want to go and check it out, because overhead is not accounting for it properly is how business owners, we end up shooting ourselves. Regulatory compliance. So there's a compliance that regulations you have to be aware of. The moment you become employer, you take on more responsibilities depending upon your state's regulations, whether it's a blue state, red state, etc., might be a little flexible or less flexible. However, now you're taking on more responsibility, which means you are going to need, technically, before you hire people. So technically, before you start hiring people, you need to make sure your HR in place, your bookkeeping is in place, your legal is in place. So those are the things you need to do to make sure you protect yourself. Whenever you bring in an employer, whether it's a part-time or full-time, there's a difference. However, whatever the terms you agreed, let's say you brought in a cleaner and you said, hey, I am going to give you provide 40 hours of work at this rate. So now whether you have work, whether it's a busy season or slow season for you, it doesn't matter. You are obligated to pay that work. So it's a guaranteed expense every month coming out from your pocket as a company, regardless whether you have new jobs onboarding or jobs or not, period. So that's an overhead expense that you should be considering in your mind. And then there's an overtime pay, which does not apply for subcontractors. When you are sending someone to do work a week, there's a 40-hour weeks, right? Anything over 32 hours, if I'm not mistaken, is considered as a full-time job. So when you go over hours, then you are required by federal regulations to pay time and a half. So let's say if you were paying somebody $20 and then the next 5 hours, you just had more projects and no one else. So next 5 hours, you had to pay them $30. So that just adds up, because now you have to pay time and a half, and that's a requirement law. So you can't utilize them. So on one hand, if they have less job, you kind of paying from your pocket just to retain them, because if you don't, there's nothing stopping an employee to go and find another employer, because especially if it's a good employee, it won't be too difficult for them to find another employer that will gladly pay them. So if it's a good employee, you have 25 hours work for that week, then you're paying 15. However, if you have to go over 5, which makes it 45 hours, now you are paying time and a half, so be mindful of that as well. You have greater exposure. Whenever you have employees, you have greater legal exposure because of those rules and regulations, and you as an employer expected to know them. However, you also have a greater opportunity to make more profit, because what you generally pay your employees are less than what you would pay to your subcontractor, which means in this different, you keep it to your pocket and grow your company. Equipment acquisition cost and maintenance and training, those are expected to come from employer, who is you. So be mindful of those costs as well if you know how to do. Let's say you are providing home cleaning services, deep cleaning, etc., and now you want to tap into a carpet cleaning services, which is, by the way, a hugely searched keyword. If you don't offer it, consider looking into cons and benefits. Without deviating from the topic, if you want to bring in and start offering carpet cleaning services to your customers, then not only you're responsible to training that employee, unless the employee has the previous past experience, which is a huge plus, but then also purchasing the equipment for the cleaners and maintaining the equipment. Not only the equipment breaks, you would have to repair, etc., transportation costs, but also the inventory costs. So now you are accumulating more overhead for yourself. And then you pay. One thing employers need to be very mindful and aware of is whatever the hours your employee works, you are required to pay. So even, let's say you send 2 people to do a house deep cleaning, and then one of them just literally was on the phone the whole day, and it happened for 3 days, and the other one was working, and the other one complains to you, and then you can't go back and say to that employee who was on the phone for the 3 days that you paid 8 hours, right, 24 hours, that you're not gonna pay that person. Because your job as an employer to make sure, hire the right people, train them, and make sure they stay busy to make profit for you. So the concept and the thought process there is, if you weren't happy, you should have let the person go or not to ask the person to come. So if the person went and worked a full day for you, but you're really not happy, the employee didn't deliver, you cannot withhold the payment from that employee. So you would have to pay for those hours. You can then terminate, and termination itself is the whole separate beast depending on the state you are. Most states at will though, just be mindful. However, whenever you do that and terminate them at will, nothing stops the employees to go and seek for unemployment benefits that your company end up eventually paying for, because state pays, then you contribute to the state, and the more unemployment claims state sees from your company, then your unemployment claim bucket rate will go up. So be mindful of those things. So you have more exposure whenever you are utilizing employees, but also more profit too. To be fair, my company has both. We have employees for certain projects and we have subcontractors for certain projects. And for certain projects, employees just make sense, and for certain projects, to utilize contractors makes sense. And those are the things, as a business owner and you grow, you will start learning and figuring out what to utilize where best. With the employees, make sure that you have your employee agreement that you put together for them. So you are required to get their background checks, of course, you're required to get their IDs, personality verification, background check on them, and then an employment contract, that's what you give it to them. And then you are required to provide employee handbook. Ideally, if you're not really required to provide employee handbook, but it's good if you have it, because then some policies that don't go into the employment agreement or contract are outlined on the employee handbook, and it's really good when you provide it, and you provide it to everyone. It talks about benefits, time off, grievance time, vacation time, over 40, employment at will, not all that stuff will be there outlined, and that's what you'd like. So far we covered the employees, right? We talked about the advantages and disadvantages and potential exposure that hiring an employee can bring to your company. Now let's talk about the subcontractors. Same thing applies with subcontractors as well. So you have exposure, but it's a greatly lesser amount. But the disadvantage of utilizing subcontractors, now you're paying the subcontractor more, because subcontractor brings their own employees. After paying them, they should have profit. Also, they maintain their own equipment, insurance, and etc. So let's start diving in more for this. So with subcontractors, you have lesser paperwork. So which means whenever you're onboarding companies, you don't need to, from my understanding, you're not required to get their IDs, you're not required to do a background check on the owner. Some companies might require that, but in general you are not, and then you're not required to check the employment verification status for those people that work under subcontractor. However, insurance is one of the biggest things that you need to make sure that you have. And then when you do the insurance, you will have to get them. Ideally, so my company has workers' compensation, employee dishonesty bond, auto liability, and then the general liability, rented lift equipment. So all that insurance that we pay for, and there's different classifications. We pay for employees different rate, and we pay for subcontractors different rate. And we, in general, those subcontractors that don't have, then my insurance company says, hey, you've been providing, they were working on behalf of you, so you're going to pay this rate that you paid because should incident could have happened, then these guys don't have the insurance, therefore we would have paid out for them. So in a sense, any subcontractor that doesn't have insurance in general are considered for the insurance purposes that you pay them in full for their premium during the insurance audit. So therefore, when you have their certificate of insurance, verify and make sure that they add you as an additionally insured on a non-contributory basis in a description field, and there's like who's insured field. They need to put your company name and your address. So this way, should a claim happen, the intent is the claimant, the person who's putting a claim against the company, goes to the subcontractor's insurance first, and whatever the subcontractor's insurance doesn't satisfy then comes to yours. And the likelihood is small because the claim in a cleaning industry is relatively small, so that will normally be put out, the fire will be put out here. And then pay one fixed amount. That's one of the good things when you are paying them. There's a one fixed amount that you pay them, which means, let's say the agreement was, hey, you're gonna pay for this particular job at $2,000 a month, then you pay $2,000 a month, and you don't have to be doing any Social Security or Medicare or other withholdings. And then as an employer, you normally match them for your employees. So here you don't have to. One more thing that skipped my mind to mention, there are different paycheck laws, and then we're gonna look into them in the end. When you have employees, there's like a frequency requirements. How far can you drag out a check not to pay? And then we're gonna look at it later. If there are a couple of things that I'm missing, let me know. Put a thumbs up if you're liking this content and finding helpful, and thank you for the thumbs up. So let's continue. Pay whenever the term you agreed upon. So that's one of the other beauties was whenever you have a subcontractor. So general terms that I mostly see there are net 15, net 30, net 45, net 60, and there's also a term called pay when get paid. So if your subcontractor agreed to pay when you get paid, then whenever you get paid for this particular project, then you're required to pay that subcontractor. But in general, you'll see net 30 to net 45 more common, especially when you work with larger companies. For example, there was some general contractors that my company have worked with, and they had this pay when you get paid terminology in there. So you should be mindful when you are becoming a subcontractor and look at the terms. So there are a couple of things that I pay attention. If I'm a subcontractor to a large general contractor or a larger property management, I pay attention whether there's a warranty clause, because like, hey, how can you warranty a cleaning, right? You just go and clean it, and once it's checked, the next day a plumber, technician, whoever comes in and they utilize the toilet, you can't guarantee it's not gonna get dirty, right? So that's one of the things that I normally pay attention whenever I'm making a subcontractor agreement, when I'm a subcontractor for a larger contractor. And then for the terms too, I would like to see net 30. That satisfies me good. There are cases when we go to net 45, net 60, depending on the customer, and that's very rare cases. Pay when get paid, we normally opt out from it unless we know that that's the term we're going, because the lost draw can be dragged out for so long. So that's a different topic for the next video. Let me know if you would like me to put the terms and conditions to pay attention when you're working for a larger company, property management company, or a general contractor. If you let me know, then I know that I can work on it, and there's an interest, I can put a video for this. So general permit terms, net 15, net 30, net 45, net 60, and then own insurance, we talked about it, and then make sure that they put that cloth in there for you, and then additionally insured. And then you are having lesser profit in general, because just think about it, whenever you are paying a subcontractor, now you're paying their employees, them to pay their employees, and then all their overhead expense, their insurance, vehicle, chemicals that they use, maintenance, and then they should also be having a little bit of profit, because otherwise it just makes no sense for your subcontractor to be your subcontractor. And then when you hire them, you will now need a subcontractor agreement with them, and subcontractor agreement is going to have the payment terms, your process of procedures. A couple of things that I'd like to put in there for you to pay attention is a non-compete, hold harmless, liquidated damages clause, non-solicitation clause. Those are the clauses that are designed to protect you if the subcontractor is unethical. And speaking of ethical or non-ethical, you might have a non-ethical employees, you might have non-ethical subcontractors, you might have non-ethical customers as well. So there is solicitation, like everybody could be soliciting and trying to save money if it's a customer, or employees make more money starting their own, or subcontractors. So therefore, being ethical makes so much sense. Like whenever you're hiring them, that's something that you'll learn over the time, and I pay super big attention to it. And I noticed that when I start becoming more ethical, people around me start becoming more ethical, and naturally we chipped off those that didn't fit our culture. So therefore, I'm extremely confident on the staff, employees, and 1099 contractors that we work with now. So that's something that as a business owner, up to you to learn, and how to pre-screen the efficacy factor. And then payment terms, of course, and then we talked about, so those clauses that I mentioned, there's a way you can save on this. I mean, you need the subcontractor agreement, you need the employee agreement. Use the AI nowadays to create the draft for you. There's a Brad AI, right, from Google. There's ChatGPT. Check out the video that I put, how to utilize ChatGPT best. So what you'd like to do is use the AI to provide the draft content for you for the language, and then do not implement right there and then. Remember, each jurisdiction and state is different. This is where you need to take that document and go to your legal counsel. And if you don't use one, utilize like Legal Shield kind of services that are subscription based, because if you're not asking the legal team to draft everything from scratch, but you're giving them this and asking them fine tune it, now they're spending lesser time, which means it costs you lesser. And in this case, hey, you got the free draft, you pay a lot less to make sure you're compliant with your local jurisdiction. And now the document that you have in between protects you and your company the best. So that's like the best utilization, in my opinion, of AI with the human interactions while protecting you and making sure you're compliant. So, and we talked about the COI already, so it's super important. Just keep in your mind, whenever you have a subcontractor, then you're responsible for their insurance. If they are not insured during the audit and audited, you will be, especially if you have workers' compensation. General liability is relatively less because they pay per thousand, but workers' compensation calculated per $100. Let me know if you want a video about the insurance as well, how to calculate, how to shop for better insurance. Paycheck loss, let's talk about that as well. And if you didn't subscribe by now, please hit that subscribe button, because my intent is to help you to become a business owner and not a glorified cleaner. And the more subscribers I have, the more motivated I am to keep creating these videos and share your stories, because quite frankly, the real stories on the comments that I read, and they say, dude, because of you, I'm seeing it more clearly. I'm a business owner. Because of your advice, it saved me so much dollars. Because of your advice, I was able to get more business. Because of your advice, now I'm able to take a paid vacation. Those are the ones that like touch my heart. It makes my heart sing. And this is exactly where I'm doing it, because I started with $200 in my pocket, and I literally didn't have the knowledge that I was seeking, and that cost me a lot of burnouts throughout my career. And if I can help you to avoid those, then that's why I'm here. So let's talk about a paycheck loss. And this is where you could be opening up yourself for a potential legal lawsuit, even a class action suit. So each state has its own requirements for employees. Remember, when we talk about subcontractors, you pay them whatever the terms you both agreed upon. So the way the states look is like, hey, two companies, you guys are two adults, whatever you agreed upon, you're fine. But when you go to employees, then it's like, hey, employees need to be protected because not all of them know the law, can't afford the legal services. So now you have more regulations and stipulations whenever you're hiring employees. So paycheck laws protect employees from not getting payment for too long. So each state is different, and I'm gonna put the government link down below and the other website link that I found from patriotsoftware.com on a blog, which is actually explains pretty clearly, so you can go over them yourself. But in a nutshell, each state defines how far long can you hold somebody's paycheck without paying them. How far long can you go? So each state has its own regulations. When it says weekly, which means you pay every week, you pay for 52 weeks. You can pay sooner, but you can't pay longer if that's your state's requirement. Normally you see bi-weekly, which means every other week. So if they're 52 weeks, then you're paying half of it, the payroll, right, 26. And some will say semi-monthly, which means now you pay not then 2 times more a month. So if you have 12 months, then you are required to pay 24. Some may say monthly, but I doubt there's a state that requires you to keep longer. So check out that spreadsheet, click on the link, see the comment, and see what is there for your state. Because if you don't know and you're dragging out the payment for longer, then you are opening up yourself for a potential legal lawsuit, and we don't want you to do that because you need to be growing your business. And if you haven't seen the next video where I talk about how to find those employees and how to pre-screen them properly, then go and check it out. The link will be here, and keep on crushing and sharing your success stories with me. Thank you, bye-bye.